Let's talk some chess. This game was played in 1923 in Copenhagen, Denmark. The player with the white pieces is named Friedrich Saemisch, who was an international grandmaster. The player with the black pieces, of course, is Aron Nimzowitsch, one of the most famous players in chess history. But this game is known not because necessarily of the stature of the players, but because of a very special combination towards the end of the game. So let's get right into it. We have d4 by Saemisch, knight to f6 by Nimzowitsch, and here c4. Very standard stuff, even back in 1923. E6 by Nimzo, knight to f3, and b5, preparing to fianchetto, but possibly this light squared bishop. G3, similarly fianchettoing this bishop. I'm going to make this volume a little bit quieter because I feel like it's super loud. Okay. And now Nimzo fianchettos his bishop on b7, and Saemisch fianchettos his own bishop on g2. We have bishop to e7, preparing to castle kingside, knight to c3, and now Nimzo tucks his king away safely. Saemisch does the same, and now Nimzo strikes in the center with d5. So cuts off his own light squared bishop for the moment, but there's a lot of tension on this d5 square, so most likely this bishop will be sort of opened up before long. We have knight to e5 here by Saemisch, getting the knight to a very nice square on e5, controlling a lot of squares in Nimzo's camp. Not that easy to kick this knight away. You can try with the bishop, or maybe moving the knight and then playing f6, but you can't kick it away immediately. And for now, Nimzo just plays c6, which is an interesting move. Adds support to this d pawn, and yeah, sort of an interesting move, but I don't want to call it a passive move because Nimzo obviously knows better than me, but I wouldn't see this move in this position, but the engine is fine with it, so we have to be as well. We have c captures on d5, c captures on d5, so that sort of was the idea, is getting his pawn back on d5 while keeping this e6 pawn cemented on e6, and now bishop to f4 by Saemisch, adding some protection to the knight on e5, and if the knight is captured, then the bishop can very happily replace it and be a good attacking piece. And here Nimzo plays a6, which is preparing, or he wrote in the notes of this game, he's preparing, with his a6 move, he's preparing b5, and then after a couple of knight moves, potentially getting his knight onto c4. And essentially, he says this was his plan, and he said this sort of freaked his opponent out so much that, as we'll see, Saemisch makes sort of unnecessary moves just to avoid this threat of the knight getting all the way to c4. So for now, we have rook to c1, putting the rook on an open file, always a good idea, and now b5 by Nimzo. So, as mentioned, you needed this a6 move to prepare for b5 because you can't go to b5 immediately because then the knight just captures. So a5, now b4, and now Nimzo wants to bring his knight and put it on c4. So we have queen to b3 by Saemisch, and now knight to c6, and now this is the move that Nimzo was talking about. Saemisch here decides to capture with the knight on c6, and Nimzo just takes back. And not the best idea, again, according to Nimzo, because this is a very powerful knight. It's taken a bunch of moves to get here. It's on a very nice square. And you're trading it for Nimzo's knight, which has only moved once and is not as good in the current position. So the engine here actually wants you to take on d5 with the knight on c3, which is an interesting looking move. It looks like you're just sort of sacking a knight, but after pawn takes, then knight takes on c6, and if you take with the bishop, then you get a wonderful rook lift here. Rook on c6, and this was the nice idea behind rook to c1, and now you are up a pawn, and you have this very active rook on c6. So that's the recommended move, but Saemisch takes the knight, and now we have bishop takes back, and now h3 by Saemisch. And this is sort of, I don't want to call it a bad move, but it doesn't really achieve anything. It prevents this knight from coming to g4, but there are probably other ways to prevent that, or if it happens, even putting the bishop on f3. Haven't studied that line, but seems better to me. This move just really, breaks up the king's defenses and doesn't achieve much, I think, is the idea. A better move here is knight to e4, and again, it looks like you're sacking a knight, but after pawn takes, then rook takes on c6, and this is a wonderful rook. The bishop is slicing this way, and this is actually a better position for white. So that was the proper idea here, but instead, we get h3, and now Nimzo develops his final piece, queen to d7, getting it off the back rank and preparing to move forward with his attack. We have king to h2, a prophylactic move, just sort of getting the king situated behind these pawns. Again, probably not the best maneuver, not really achieving anything by way of attack. And now we have knight to h5 by Nimzowitsch. Attacking this powerful bishop on f4. You don't want to give up this bishop. Attacking the pawn on g3. I guess that doesn't matter. And then it also unleashes the bishop to this nice diagonal. So we have bishop to d2. You want to preserve the bishop. You don't want the knight to take it away on f4. But now f5 by Nimzo. And you can see with the past couple moves and in the next couple of moves, Nimzo is going to press his pieces forward. His king is safe. His opponent's king is safe, but in a weird sort of position with the knights with the pawns and the bishop. And he's going to sort of start to be a boa constrictor, basically, and squeeze his opponent's pieces and create this really untenable position. So here, f5, obviously grabbing more space on the f file, and we have queen to d1 by Saemisch. And already you can see there's these are some very advanced pawns. The knight's controlling a bunch of squares. This queen to d1 is not a productive move. It's a retreat. Saemisch's world is getting smaller and smaller with every move. And now we have b4 by Nimzowitsch pushing even further. Obviously, this attacks the knight, and there are no really good squares for the knight to go to. Any of these squares, it will be captured, so you have to retreat to b1. So now the knight is back on b1. We just had a queen and a knight retreat to the first rank, and now you get bishop to b5 by Nimzo, adding an attacker to this e2 pawn. Pins the pawn. If the pawn moves now, the bishop picks up the rook, winning the exchange. And now the queen is sort of glued to the defense of this pawn on e2. So every move just pressing in, forcing these pieces to be stuck together and not be very active, whereas Nimzo's pieces are obviously in much more open space and achieving much more in the attack. We have rook to g1 here, so breaking the pin. Now you can move the pawn without worrying about the rook being captured. But now bishop to d6 by Nimzowitsch, and now you're pinning the g3 pawn to the king. This is why, not good to have your king on h2. This is a very powerful bishop and will be a very important bishop as the attack continues. So now we have e4, trying to fight back, get some space back, win in the center, but it's kind of too late. The proper move here already is just playing the very passive a3, trying to sort of win on the queen side a little bit more, but it doesn't work either. That's just what the engine recommends. e4 was played, and now Nimzo is very happy to take. F takes on e4, opening up, semi-opening up this file for the rook, and now the rook and the bishop and the knight are all getting, intimidatingly close to the enemy king. So we have queen. Oh, sorry, I should mention too. Sorry. So the idea behind this this e4 move is not only does it attack in the center, but it opens up a discovered attack of the queen on the knight. So this was the other the other idea behind queen to d1, lining up with the knight on h5, and now when you push in the center, you attack the knight, and that's all fine. So probably in this position, Saemisch expected Nimzo to retreat the knight or maybe play g6, but as I always say, it's the worst when you make a move trying to achieve something in chess and your opponent just ignores it and plays the move they were going to play anyways. And here, Nimzo just plays e4, completely giving up the knight on h5. So Saemisch has no choice but to capture it. That was the idea after all, and Nimzo sort of called his bluff. But now Nimzo plays rook to f2, capturing the pawn. And as he writes in his notes, he just gave up a knight for 2 pawns, and now a very devastating attack. The f file is completely open. The other rook's going to come into the game and doesn't mind losing this knight on h5 to get that initiative. So we have queen to g5 by Saemisch. Not the best move, but there's not much in this position that really works, so you're lining up with the enemy king, I guess, is the idea. But now rook a to f8, and now you have the rooks doubled up on this very powerful and completely open f file. King to h1, breaking the pin, so now, obviously the rook is pinning the bishop to the king, so king to h1 breaks that pin. But now you have rook 8 to f5. And this is the beginning of a theme that we're going to see in this position. The rooks are attacking the queen, obviously, and queen can't capture because then rook takes queen is good for Nimzo. So attacking the queen and forcing it to sort of run and hide. There are not many squares that work for this queen to actually go. A lot of them are covered by Nimzow's pieces, and the most natural looking one is what's played, which is queen to e3. But already you can see that, well, I think we'll get to that in a couple moves. Now Nimzow plays this wonderful bishop to d3 move, and this is really, really just tightening the clamps on his enemy's position. Now this pawn and this bishop are just super solid and completely controlling this position. The two rooks are on this f-file. This bishop is, threatening to capture g3 if the queen ever moves. So just really putting a ton of pressure here. And here the Saemisch plays the proper defensive move, which is rook to e1. The idea behind rook to e1 is it's stopping a really important threat. So when the bishop came to d3, it cut off some important escape squares for the queen. So as of in this position, the queen can escape to b3. Nothing's attacking on b3, that's fine. But after the bishop blocks, these squares obviously are not viable for escape. And here, if Saemisch just made some silly move like b3, then you would get rook to e2 by Nimzow, and now the queen is totally lost. There are no squares for the queen to move to. If it moves here, it's taken. Moves here, it's taken by the pawn or the rook. The rook takes it here, rook takes it here, pawn takes it here. So here you just have to capture the rook and lose a queen for a rook. So that's the clear threat, and Saemisch defends this by playing rook to e1, preventing rook to e2 by Nimzow. But this is where Nimzow plays the move that just sends this game into the annals of chess history, helps it achieve its sort of immortal status. So see if you can find the winning move here, or I guess the coolest winning move for Nimzow while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, if you got it, that's awesome. Maybe you've seen this game before. Maybe you're a great chess player. Maybe you've got great style. All three of those, a combination of those three. Nimzow here plays the just beautiful h6, and in this position, his opponent resigned. And it doesn't look like a very threatening move, so let's talk about it. The idea behind h6 is it puts Saemisch in Zugzwang, which is an important chess term. It basically means it's your turn to move, but making any move will lead to your disadvantage, or lead to a losing position, or lead to you losing material. So basically, the imperative to move is a disadvantage. And it's very satisfying when you force your opponent into these situations because they have to move, but any move they make will sort of lose them the game. So let's think about what that means. Let's look at this position. Let's look at all of White's pieces. Let's see if there's a move that White can make that sort of saves the game. First of all, the main threat here is that the queen is pretty much trapped, and there are no squares that the queen can move to. So all of these squares are covered by Nimzow's pieces, so the queen can't move. So that's right off the bat. A very natural looking, like easy, kind of this move a move that shouldn't be an issue is just playing a3, right? This doesn't seem to affect anything, but then you just get a5 by Nimzow, and after a captures on b4, a captures on b4, we're in the exact same position. So moving the pawns on the queen side doesn't work, and it's important because this pawn on b4 is preventing this knight from moving to c3 or a3. So again, moving the pawns doesn't work because you just get the pawn replaced on b4. So moving the pawns doesn't work, and as we just said, moving the knight doesn't work, of course, because the pawns would just capture it. What if we try to move this bishop? Well, we obviously can't put it on c3 because then pawn captures, but what if we put bishop on c1? Then, unfortunately, the bishop is blocking the defense of the rook to the knight, so you just get bishop takes knight, and now you are down a knight, and that's no fun. Okay, so we've been through these pawns, we've been through this knight, we've been through this bishop, the queen, obviously, this pawn can't move, so that's a bunch of pieces that can't move. Which is a simple way to say it. This rook on e1, I don't know why my screen is doing that. This rook on e1, if this rook moves anywhere, then we get the same threat we saw before. Nimzow puts his rook on e2, and the queen is trapped and has nowhere to go. So this rook cannot move. This rook on g1, the only square it can move to is f1, but then you get bishop takes. There's probably even something better, but you get bishop takes, and you're down the exchange. So let's think about if there are any other pieces that will work. I think a piece that looks like it can be moved and looks like it can sort of even get a better position is playing g4 and attacking this rook on f5. But what's really nice about sort of this idea is that it opens up now this avenue for the dark squared bishop to get into the game. So after you play g4, Nimzo can play this wonderful f3 move. Obviously, this is attacking the queen, and yeah, just something you have to deal with. The queen can't move anywhere, and this was also what I should mention. What's really important about this h6 move is that it prevents the queen from moving to g5 safely in all of these lines, so it cuts off another escape square for the queen. But you can capture with the bishop. If you capture the bishop here, then you get rook to h2, and this is checkmate because the dark squared bishop is protecting the rook now that the g pawn has left g3. So this is checkmate. You can't do that. You can't move this pawn. That doesn't work because you open up this dark squared bishop. The only other move that looks like it could make sense is king to h2. Just maybe you can move the king back and forth and wait. But the problem here is that you've now pinned the light squared bishop to the king. So now you just get rook to f3, and the bishop can't capture because it's pinned. And again, the queen has nowhere to go. All of these squares, it will be captured. Again, even if it goes to g5, it's captured because of this wonderful h6 move. So that doesn't work either. And the one other line is like if you want to play h4, looks like an okay move. Then the queen just comes to f7, and now you have 3 very powerful pieces on the f file. And if you want to just try to keep pushing the pawn, that of course doesn't work because you get rook takes on h5, and this is going to lead to mate very soon. After bishop takes, then rook takes bishop. Yeah, just an awesome position. Hopefully, I think we went through all the pieces. Every single piece, if you move it, you're either losing a piece, losing a queen, getting checkmated, and just a beautiful Zugzwang by Nimzo to really force his enemy's pieces into a totally just consolidated compromise position, and with this really very stylish, very subtle h6 move, put the clamps on and force his opponent to resign because there literally are no moves that you can make. So hope you enjoyed that game. Thanks for watching. Drop a like, drop subscribe, and we'll see you next time.